So now you are in your, what many people would consider a forever home because you use the funds from your first home to help finance that second home. But that dream home was short-lived.
Yes, it was.
What happened?
So July the 4th of 2023, we had a house fire. So we was only in the home for less than 8 months. So we had a house fire July 4th. We were home at the time, watching TV, really didn't do too much for the 4th of July. Then our neighbors came, knocked on the door and said, "Hey, the side of your house is on fire." And so my husband jumped up and went on the side, and the trash can was blazing, and they was trying to find water to put on it, but it just spread so fast. And before we know it, the whole house was engulfed because it kind of, spread it to the top of our 2-story home. And once the roof kind of caught fire, it just went. Wow. And so when the firefighters got there, it was more so like a controlled burn. They didn't want to damage the other homes. So they more so just kind of just let it do what it was doing, just because they didn't want to risk other homes catching fire. Because on this day, it was like 100 degrees. Yeah, so had a house fire, we were displaced. But the good thing is we had, at the time we didn't know, but we had some great homeowners insurance.
Okay. And now you're going to become the teacher, because I know very little about, this is a good homeowners insurance compared to this one. Of course, we have homeowners insurance.
Right.
I went with the recommendation of that agent, and the lender said that worked. And I never thought anything else about it until your family lost your home. And now there's like, wait, what do we need to do?
Right. So when we purchased our first home, we was going in it with, okay, we want whatever's affordable.
Right.
We really wasn't paying attention to like the fine print, what was covered. We just wanted what price fit our budget into the home, because that was a part of escrow.
Right.
So, fast forward to our second home, we went with State Employees Credit Union. And because we went with State Employees Credit Union, we also went with their insurance agents as well, which at that time, we didn't know we had what they considered to be the Maybach of homeowners insurance.
Okay.
So we had the top tier homeowners insurance that was comprehensive, and it covered a lot.
I probably have like the Honda Accord version of the homeowners insurance, but I need to look into getting the Maybach one. Okay.
Yeah, we had the Maybach. And so, of course, this was all brand new to me. So, of course, we went in and we learned more about homeowners insurance, just because we thought it was something for future home buyers to know, because you never know when something can happen, like the unexpected. And to know that we were fully covered, that was, something that was important to us. And so I do have a few notes just because it is new. So I did take down a few notes. So our first home, we had what they call the standard policy. It's one that is more affordable. It covers the solid basic protection. Some of the cons is more exclusions. It's harder when it comes to claims. And so that's what they call the HO3 standard policy.
Okay.
So that's what we had on our first home. Our second home, we had the HO5, which is comprehensive, also the Maybach policy. And so again, that's the top tier policy. It covers your home as well as the belongings, your contents within your home, which that is important as well. And we also had higher coverage limits, because that's also important, because when it comes time to rebuild, you want to make sure that you have enough coverage limits to rebuild what you had. Also, there's fewer loopholes, easier claim processes. But one thing that we found out with our Maybach policy was that it also covered our mortgage. Because even though our house was gone, we still owed a mortgage. We still had to pay monthly, in addition to being displaced and renting a long-term rental, which the policy for our homeowners covered both. It covered our rental as well as it covered our mortgage. The only thing that it didn't cover was the interest, but it covered the mortgage as far as for, principal.
Okay. So while the new home was getting rebuilt, at least, thank God, that was one thing off of your shoulder, that stress of paying a mortgage then you're in a rental and your belongings need to be replaced, or your clothes, all the things. You still have to live.
You still have to live.
Okay, so that process could have been a lot more stressful. Well, I know it was still stressful, but at least that's one weight off of your shoulder. How long were you displaced?
So we were displaced roughly about 9 months. 9 months because we had to completely demolish the old home, and then we had to find a new builder for the new home, and then they had to get permitting and, you know, all those things. And we had to go through the HOA because now our house is not going to look like all the other houses in the neighborhood. So we had to fight HOA on a few things. So it took roughly about 9 months from start to finish.
Why didn't you go with the same builder?
So we didn't go with the same builder, one, primarily because they was going to build the exact same home. And so we wanted more so like a fresh start. We didn't want, you know, memories of walking into the same home and, you know, thinking about that house. Like, we wanted just a clean slate. And so our insurance company told us, we do not have to go with that same builder. You can go out and you can find a builder that will build on your lot.
Okay.
And so that was one of the things that we didn't know.
Right.
We was assuming that we had to go with our same builder. But when they told us that we can go with another builder, that's when we went out and we did research. And that's when we went with Dree's Home.
Okay. So tell me about the new home.
So new home, oh my gosh, it was a process. This time around, we had opportunity to go through like the design center. And we just kind of, you know, put things in it that kind of made it a home, and most definitely, you know, one of our forever homes. Okay. So, you know, we love our new home. Open concept, first floor, master downstairs, as well as
primary
master.
Primary. You can't call it a master anymore.
Oh, can't call it. Okay, I'm learning something new.
We'll roll it back. How do you love your new home?
So I love it. We have a primary downstairs. We also have a guest bedroom downstairs as well, with a full guest bathroom.
Nice.
With the walk-in shower. You know, we both have, you know, parents that are older, so having, you know, a bathroom that a shower is walk-in, you know, is easier, not having to go up the stairs. But yeah, we're loving it.
So for people when they're buying a home, I think sometimes we don't realize, we know that insurance is important. I also didn't know the difference in the tiers of insurance policies. So that's really something that you want to ask questions, do your research. When you hear information like this about a family losing their home after only 6 months, now I need to call my insurance company and say, hey, let's talk about this.
Talk about the Maybach policy. Just like with car insurance, you shop around, you figure out which, you know, homeowners insurance works best for, you know, your family. And, you know, at that time, we were more so looking, you know, at the bottom line figure instead of what was actually a part of the plan, those extra endorsements, the limits of, you know, our dwellings and contents and all those things. You know, those things before we wasn't thinking about, but now with the new mindset, that's how we go in when we looking at our homeowners insurance, because you want to look at your homeowners insurance at least every 2 to 3 years. Okay. Because it changes, prices changes. So that's one of the things that, you know, that we would definitely recommend. But I do have a few things for first-time home buyers as you are in the process. Here are a few things that you want to ask when you are looking for your homeowner's insurance. So the first thing is, do I have an HO3 or a HO5 policy? Okay. HO3 again is the standard policy, and then the HO5 is the Maybach, the more comprehensive policy. Okay. So that's the first question. Okay. The second question, is my home covered at full replacement costs? Because your house can be worth $565,000. Something happened, Lord forbid, you have to rebuild, and they say now your house, because it's depreciated, is only worth $380,000. Okay. So one thing with the Maybach policy, we also had full replacement costs. Okay. So if our house was $565 was what the homeowner's insurance covered. Okay. So it was no depreciated value. The third thing is, what is my loss of use limit? And then what does it include? Okay. Because those are things such as your contents and your belongings within your home. One thing that we were not aware of when you move into your home, go in, take pictures of everything within your home. So then that way you kind of have like a record of what you have, because in the event something happened, that's the last thing, you worried about. But those are some of the things that, they ask for.
Okay.
So that way you'll know. And then the last thing, which is important, are there any endorsements that cover your mortgage as well as living expenses that's extended through like rental?
Okay.
So this was one of the things that our policy included: our mortgage coverage as well as it covered our rental.
Okay.
And with the rental, like it covered with the furnishing, it covered everything. We didn't have to come out of pocket for anything.
Was there rental limits, like you had to find an apartment or a house that was in a certain range?
So no, so the rental limit was comparable to what we were living in. So if you were living in a 5-bedroom, 4-bathroom, you can go out and you can look for a 5-bedroom, 4-bathroom. Something that's comparable to your previous living arrangements. And they moved pretty fast. We had our house fire on July 4th. Initially they wanted to put us up in a hotel before we can find anything. But our insurance moved so fast that within a week, we was already in our long-term rental.
Wow. And that was already furnished and ready to go.
They furnished it. They reached out to a rental company. Apparently there's a rental company that rents furniture for like home decor and things such as that. And so they came in and they furnished it: beddings, kitchenware, sheets, towels.
All of that was taken
care of.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what was probably a pretty devastating time for your family, not being in that home, but just a few months, losing that home. Now, a couple of years later, you can look back,
yes,
and see the blessing in that disaster. And I'm so glad that this story turned out the way it did. And thank you for sharing, because I knew very little about homeowners insurance and all these fancy policies and things to make other people more aware of. So I hope this is helpful for someone else when they get ready to buy a home, or if you're already a homeowner and you're like, oh, let me look a little closer into my homeowner's insurance policy. This information helped you. I can't wait to share some of the beautiful pictures of the last home and the current home. Thanks for tuning in.